And hello, everybody, and welcome to a new episode of Haunted Histories. I'm sorry I've been a bit quiet the last few months. Family stuff, everything else has been overwhelmed me, but I'm back. I've got four podcasts planned for you to take us to the end of the year. Hopefully, you're going to enjoy all of them. If you are wanting to come and have a natter with me face to face at some point before the end of the year, please do. I will be at the Festival of the Unexplained a bit later in September over at Bosworth Hall. And then in October, I think it's the 20th of October, I'll be there. If you're anywhere in West Yorkshire, I think Pontefract is, West Yorkshire, pop up to Pontefract because I'll be there at the Haunted Antiques Parameet. And it would be lovely to have a natter next year. Well, next year, anyone listening to this who's from America, make a note in your diary for mid-May and Penhurst Asylum, because yours truly has been invited to be one of the sort of people attending Penhurst Asylum's Paracon, which, to say I'm pinching myself is an understatement. But yeah, if you listen to this show and you're in America, and I know it's a big place, but if you're able to get to Pennsylvania next May, keep an eye out for those dates and come and say hello, because I've promised the guy who runs it. I do actually have one or two followers in the States, so don't let me down. Don't let me down. Well, tonight's show, I and my guest on it was didn't realise that I had northeastern blood in me. She was quite shocked, actually, when I told her that my dad was from Middlesbrough. And so I said, well, I've got to really do a show on somewhere that's near his old stomping ground. And we're going to be talking about an old school, aren't we, Mel Clements?
We certainly are, yes.
Yes, my guest is Mel Clements from Kindred Spirit Investigations, and they specialise in doing investigations around the sort of the Cleveland, Teeside, North Yorkshire part of England, which, if I was closer to you, Mel, I would be in your pocket the whole time because I love that part of the UK. I regularly get my visa stamped so I can leave the southeast and come up
No, we've
north.
got some good places up north, definitely.
Oh, it's just the atmosphere, and I've told this story before. This will make you laugh. My husband's a southerner, born and bred southerner. His parents are Londoners. He's from Essex. Even though I'm from Essex, both my parents are northerners. Wars of the Roses though, because one's white and one's red. But you know, bit of a Romeo and Juliet situation, I suppose you could say, going on there. But I've always travelled around, and I've always been going up to sort of North Yorkshire and Teesside and all that all my life. I took him up to Bridlington when we first met on a week's holiday with our dog. And we were stood in a queue for something. I can't remember what it was. And she was only 7, 8 months old. So she was she was cute. She was a Labrador cross golden retriever. And this lovely lady starts talking to him. And I'm thinking, is he going to reply? Is he going to reply to her? And he turned to me and he went, am I supposed to talk back? And I went, darling, this is the North. You can have a full-blown conversation. And she went, is this his first time? Is he a Southerner? And I went, yes, I'm so sorry. You can't stop him now. As soon as we get across the border, he is talking to everyone. And even my sons are doing it as well now. They sort of, the minute they get sort of through into sort of the more northern, like once we get past like Lincolnshire and everything else, they're having conversations with everyone, just nattering away. And how are you doing? How are you having a good day? And it's so different to down here. Because if you go into London and you talk to a complete stranger, you'll probably get arrested.
Look at you like you're weird.
Yeah, they do. They do. And nobody ever believes me who's not been to your neck of the woods
Hmm.
that it is like that. People,
Yeah, it is. It's very friendly place.
yeah.
I think the further north you go, the more friendly it gets. The Scots are very friendly as well.
Mm. I've never had a problem with any part of Yorkshire, any of the Yorkshires. Um, but no, I definitely I mean, I was saying to you, I like Northallerton because we went there a couple of years ago with our German Shepherd, And the amount of people who were like coming over asking us about, because he's only got three legs, asking us about him nattering away, and so sort of, they'd even, oh, does he need a hand? Can we help you with him? Can we do this? Can we get him some water? And it was just so lovely. So absolutely lovely. So no, I do have Northern DNA in me. So what made you focus on the venues of the North? Well,
Well, I think I've always been interested in the paranormal anyway, from being a dot, really. I was
mm,
one of these really strange children that had an imaginary friend when I was younger. And I remember them seeing like a person. And I think because I've always had that belief that there was some, because this person, when my sister was born, all of a sudden disappeared. And I
mm,
think it was because I was probably lonely when I was a child. But I
mm-hmm,
still remember him now as being a child, like a physical child that you could see.
mm,
Um, and I suppose I always had that interest. And it just so happened I was about 21, I'd come back from university, and I was looking through the internet and I thought, oh, ghost hunt. Thought I'll go for that and just see what it's like. And the company that I went with, I actually started working with. And then I just got a bit fed up really and thought I can do this myself.
mm,
And ended up, really, it was going with friends initially.
mm,
Basically, we went out with friends, and then their friends brought their friends, and their friends brought their friends. And I thought I'm going to have to make this into a business because we're starting to make a little bit of money here.
mm,
Um, and it went from there.
mm.
So
So was it
that's
a conscious decision to focus on the sort of Teesside, Cleveland area? Was it that you thought people aren't focusing on this? They seem to have like the odd place, but they ignore this area.
I think at first it was because I lived around that area
Hmm.
and I was interested in the history of things and things like the folklore. Is it folklore or is it actually a real ghost? That type of thing. Is it a
Hmm.
spirit? Um, and I was particularly interested in the historical buildings in the area. So not necessarily the ones that are very popular, like the
Mm,
Middlesbrough Town Hall and there's Acklam Grange. There's places around in Middlesbrough that are very old, but
mm,
also the ones that get overlooked, like Saltburn Old School, I suppose.
mm,
The community centres, because some of them have some excellent
mm.
activity in them that it's just as interesting as the bigger buildings, really,
Yeah,
and
no,
still
I
has a story to
agree.
tell.
So
Um,
what was I mean, we're going to talk about obviously Saltburn, the school, a bit later, but
mhm,
what what I mean, I love it when I find out a fact. It can be a really small fact that maybe goes, oh bloody hell, never knew that. What's been something that you found out about your sort of home county, for want of a better term, that's made you go, oh wow, put you on the spot
about
now, haven't
Middlesbrough
I?
itself, yeah, you've got me stumped. I'd have to think about it, I think.
All right, we'll come
Um,
back to that one then, because the other thing
yeah.
you mentioned, an imaginary person, imaginary friend. That's
Hmm.
something that I've had many discussions with people about, and obviously
Hmm.
you've worked with children.
Yes.
It, I've always said to them, how do we know that that person is an imaginary friend? How do we not know that because that child doesn't, that a child who still believes in Father
Hmm.
Christmas, a child still believes in the Tooth Fairy, they've got that ability to see things that once you get that disbelief in everything, once you get jaded, you don't necessarily see it anymore. I've always argued, how do we not know that that isn't a spirit that's trying to sort of be there?
100%, because I remember, I mean, he was that real to me. It was like I was
Mm,
outside playing with a friend. I'd be saying, come on, come down the street and
yeah.
play with me. And I was completely alone. I must have looked like a right lunatic looking back. But I remember the day, because one day my mum just said, well, where's he gone? And I said, he's just gone. I don't know,
Mm.
he's gone. And I never ever played with him after that.
And how
Um,
old were you when that happened?
that
That he
must have
went?
been about, I'd been going on 5 to 6.
It seems to be at around 4 to 5. I've noticed that a lot of children stop seeing them. It does
Mm,
seem to be. Well, I just wonder if there's something else in the brain that suddenly clicks in that stops them.
yeah.
Because I know that my my husband's cousin used to live in a very old house, and they kind of. I mean, I've been in the family, so to speak, for 21 years, and they've always thought I was a bit weird. And and that, but yeah, her little boy said he kept seeing this little girl, and she'd come out of the wardrobe and want to play with him. And he would have been about 2.5, 3. And they were terrified. Oh, what do we do? What do we do? He's being haunted. And they said, "Well, speak to Penny. She might have some advice." And and I sort of said to them, does she ever encourage him to do things he shouldn't do, like dangerous stuff? No, she just wants to sit and play. Okay. Is he scared? No, he calls her his, I can't remember what the name was, his friend. And I said, in all honesty, as long as he knows that if she says, let's jump out of this window, you don't do it,
Mm.
is there any harm? I said, it's an old house. It's 500 years old, sort of thing. I said, it could just be a spirit that's there to play with him while his sort of older siblings are at school or something. You don't, I wouldn't, and they did. They didn't worry. He'd tell them what they'd done that day, what she'd said to him, and nothing was ever sort of. It was no diff. It was nothing that would raise alarm bells as a parent. The stuff the child was saying to him, and then he got to about 4. She didn't turn up again. It's odd, isn't it?
It is.
Mm.
Yeah, it
So,
is.
have you thought about my interesting thing yet?
You know what I have? I've
Good.
just trying to locate where the hospital was. Um, I don't know the name of the hospital in Normanby itself, just up towards Flats Lane. There used to be a children's hospital. I didn't
Hmm.
know the building was a children's hospital. It's now a care home.
Hmm.
And we were talking about it because I was at the school at the top of the road, and talking about the buildings within the area. And it was a children's hospital with smallpox at the time and
Hmm.
tuberculosis and things like that.
Yep.
It just interested me because I'd never known even anything about that. I grew up in Normanby and I actually walked past it nearly every day when I was younger,
Mm.
as a child. And I think that really, because I didn't realise I suppose I didn't realise there was any children's hospitals around here.
Least of all, an
Around,
isolation hospital.
yeah,
Mm.
yeah, and that's where they used to obviously, but they used to bury like keep the bodies there, didn't they? And sometimes they would bury them on site as well.
Sometimes it
But,
depends if the family had the money to, because if they were done as a if it was about 1947 from memory,
mm,
then yes, they might have done because it was the parish's responsibility if the family couldn't afford
yeah,
an
I didn't
official.
know that. You see,
Mm.
it's a factor I've never even known.
Yeah,
It's funny.
orphanages. If it was a child without a family, then yes, that is. But they still had to be. They were still. It was still consecrated ground. They weren't just sort of chucked in a hole. The ground would
Mm,
still be consecrated. They just may not have had a gravestone because gravestones are
yeah.
incredibly expensive. So
Mhm,
they would have normally was a logbook with like a grave marker number of
mhm,
where each of the patients, because it was the same in a lot of the asylums and everything else. They sometimes had to have mass burial sites out the back because the sheer numbers that they potentially could be dealing with, and not because of any maltreatment or anything like that. It was people died,
mm,
especially from things like tuberculosis and stuff. Because I don't think they were able to. I'm sure I. It wasn't until I'm sure it wasn't until antibiotics became available in the sort of, well, it was I think they first started pioneering the treatment for it off the top of my head in the mid-30s, a type of antibiotic a drug for tuberculosis, but it wasn't widely available. I'm sure it wasn't until about the early 50s from
mm,
memory. It's a while since I've done the medicine side of that side of things, but yeah, most places would have had some kind of a TB hospital. Um, and you tend to find a lot of older hospitals, like Gisborough, the hospital at Gisborough, that was the old workhouse.
yes.
Um,
Was it really? I didn't know that.
was indeed.
No, I didn't know that.
It's like Jack
This
and
is, I
Ori
find
with
this
Penny Griffiths
fascinating.
Morgan. Yeah, no, you find a lot of the older hospitals were either the workhouse because they converted it into a hospital, or a lot of hospitals would have been originally like they would have had TB units. I never knew that my local hospital in Chelmsford, Broomfield Hospital, I thought it was just a hospital built in the 60s. No, it was
Mm,
originally a TB. And a friend of mine who worked there got me some of the photos. You can't get to it, but out the back, it had the stereotypical massive open like verandas where they used to like to wheel the beds out so people got fresh air.
mm,
Um, that all you have to do is show it to me and I can say, yeah, that was a TB unit because it's so uniform.
Yeah,
Um,
great.
but yeah, I know we used to. I remember meeting a client of mine. She was a nurse in the 50s at the TB hospital in Dagenham in East London. And I was like, I didn't know they had a TB hospital. She went, oh yeah, it was huge. So yeah, it's fascinating, and especially when you say you've been walking past it for so many years, and
Exactly.
it's just a
Yeah,
building.
it's interesting, isn't it, to find out where your roots have come from,
Yeah,
really, and just the buildings are just as much of the place as your family, really,
yeah,
because it's the area that they've grew up in.
yeah. No, I that's part of the reason I do things like this because I love discovering. But yes, Gisborough Hospital was the former workhouse. Because I tried my aunt I mentioned who lives there. I was trying to get her to get me into the old part that's not being used now. It's all shut up, and I was like, "Oh, go on, can you use one of your contacts there? Get me in." And they're like, "No, it's not safe." And I was like, "I don't care. I don't care. I'll wear a hard hat. I don't care.
Sign a disclaimer.
Just
Get
let
me
me
in.
in." Yeah, unfortunately. But so, I think one of the things I like about the stuff you guys do, it is highlighting places that aren't the mainstream, that aren't ones that everyone knows about. If there was more locations in your neck of the woods that you could bring on board, what would be like, how do I put this? What would be your dream location to sort of show a certain part of history of the area? Does that make sense? Like, what would be somewhere you'd love to use to spotlight what
What the area
Cleveland
is
and
about.
Teesside was about? Yeah.
I suppose it's for us, particularly in Normanby and Eston, would be the coal mining,
Hmm.
somewhere that would showcase what the coal mining was like. I mean, we do have Cleveland Ironstone mines, but that's mainly over Skinning Grove Way. But
Hmm.
over this way, there was a lot of coal mines at
Right.
the top of Eston, California Bank. I'd really like it would be interesting to have some sort of investigation into those. There
Mm.
are some mines up the hills that are blocked off, and there are some I don't know what they call them. They're like shelters where in World War that they dug down so that if they had the air raids, they would hide down there.
Oh, that'd be
I'd
interesting
like to
ones.
go into some of those because there is sightings. There's reports of sightings around places like that, but obviously
Mm.
they've all been blocked off now. But if I could get into something like that, that would be amazing. Like you say, pull the bricks away and get in.
Yeah. So did
Kind of just
some of those have train tracks then that did they use a lot of the coal from those for the ironworks then
yes, because that was that's how it all began. That's all
Mm.
how Eston Normandy became a town,
Yeah.
because of the coal mines and things like that.
Because my sort of ancestors, they were steel workers.
Hmm.
In I think Gisborough, there was one lived in Gisborough. I can't remember where the other one was, but they were steel workers. Which is why they didn't have to fight in World War One because it was a reserved occupations and stuff. So I
Probably,
say that's
probably
it's
Charlton's mine, up near Charlton's
I don't
in
know.
Gisborne.
I know he was my was it my great on my mum on my dad, no, it's my dad's side on his dad's side. So it would have been his grandfather. So my great grandfather, he was a foreman. I think he wasn't just like a laborer or anything in the steel. He was actually a trade. He was a technical sort of, even though he did actually apply to go to fight, he wasn't allowed to because his skills in the steel mill were too important for them to lose. Um,
Hmm.
but it is, yeah, I'd love to see something like that and sort of,
There is an old bathhouse if you ever go back up to Gisborne, Charlton's Village Hall. That's
mm,
an old bathhouse, and you can actually go down into the like where they used to have the old baths.
oh,
And it was only, I think it was about 5 years ago that they were decorating and they knocked through the brick by accident and they
mm,
found there was more baths underneath the
wow.
foundations of the building.
Do you
Um,
investigate there?
yes, it's quite an active place. It's Help Your House is Haunted's been there as well.
Oh, had they? Okay.
Yeah, I think Neil, it might have been Neil Story that went there as well.
Probably if it was that
Um,
neck of the woods. Yeah, he was living up sort of he was up that way, Northumberland, up that way
but
anyway, Castle,
it
something like
wasn't
that.
it wasn't that one actually. Sorry for him. It was Chris that had gone. But
Right.
it was very active there. We get a lot of very strange activity in that place. It used to be upstairs used to be the miners where they would congregate.
Hmm.
It's now a dance school and has a lot of activity there. But downstairs there used to be quite a malevolent spirit.
Mm.
But I think that was cleansed,
Mm.
and that seems to have gone. But you get children through now, whereas you didn't previously. So
Oh, is
it's
that
interesting.
that's near Gisborough, did you say?
It's going up towards Whitby
Oh, right.
from Gisborough. It's you can get to it within 5 minutes from Gisborough.
Oh, I know Whitby well as well. Best fish and chips I ever had in Whitby. Um, so I genuinely do love the area. I say my husband and I joke. Most people when they retire, they want to move further south. We don't. We want to come up
Mhm.
north. We want to come up to North Yorkshire, and we always used to think it would be like sort of Pickering around that area. Well, after visiting like North Allerton and around there, we're like, actually, I think we're going to go further.
Yeah.
Yeah, we genuinely. In fact, he was only saying to me the other night, we haven't been to Yorkshire this year. I don't feel right. So it's got to
Come
happen
up
at
and
some
see
point.
us.
Well, yeah, but I mean the two kids and the dog, and it's not once the kids are old enough that we can just leave them and just shoot off for a weekend, we probably will, but um it's not quite that easy.
Not that simple.
No, even though the older child, he is actually a trainee investigator. The younger one can't. So and the dog would just cause chaos, to be quite honest. But let's talk about schools. Let's talk
Mhm.
about schools. So, when I asked you where you would like to talk about, you said Saltburn Old School.
Yes.
Why did you choose it?
I think because it intrigues me. It's a place that when I first went round, I've never felt this before. Um, but when I first went round it to have a look round it, my hairs literally stood up on my arms
Mm.
the whole time I was there. It was almost like I was drawn there.
Hmm.
Um, and it was just had such a strange atmosphere. And I suppose because I'm a teacher as well, I was a teacher, head of education now, but um, the fact that I've always been with children and things like that, I think
Mm.
it just intrigued me as to why spirits would linger around there. I wouldn't want to go back to my old school, but there again, my memories weren't necessarily that happy there or traumatic there. Um, but it did intrigue me, particularly with the stories that I was told about what was happening there. Um, so that it just intrigued me, found it
Mm.
interesting, and just wanted to find out more. I like to find out about the backgrounds
Yeah,
of the spirits if I can, and see if we can actually evidence that with real fact.
yeah. I
If
mean, what's
that's
intrigued me about the place is how little blooming information there is about it.
isn't the just yeah
Crikey
we've
O'Reilly. I mean, I'm pretty darn good at digging stuff up. And I know I dug a few bits up that you didn't know. But I
mhm.
was so frustrated. I was like, there's gotta be more. There's gotta be more
Yes.
than this.
Yeah, there's
Because
virtually nothing.
it's I mean, the one thing I found that I thought was quite interesting was the school was formed in the early 1900s as a
Yes,
girls' grammar school. It was known as Saltburn High School for Girls. It was a
yes,
grammar school for girls. Now, we're talking pre-World War One here.
yeah,
So educating girls into what would be classed as secondary education, it wasn't as important as the boys being educated,
mhm,
shall we say. And children could still leave at 12. So there, it was quite interesting to find a newspaper article, which I know I sent you a copy of, where some of the counsellors were saying it's a pointless spend of money to put this school
yes,
together. You know, why are we bothering? Which I actually wasn't that surprised at seeing. I mean, when you think about everything else, the sort of like female emancipation and the suffragette
mhm,
movement and everything else that would have been going on around that sort of time, it didn't surprise me that, well, why would we want to educate girls?
yeah,
Um, but they did. The school was founded. Um, I mean, one of my favourite facts actually about Saltburn is one of my favourite singers is from the area. But that's one of my favourite facts about the place.
mhm.
David Coverdale,
All right, yeah, yeah.
Whitesnake, David
James
Coverdale.
Arthur's from there as well.
Sorry?
Yeah, more recent, James Arthur.
Nah, I don't like him.
I'm not that
I love
myself
David
either.
Coverdale's voice. I could listen to David Coverdale sing nursery rhymes and I'd be quite happy. I love his voice, but I knew he was a northeaster. I always thought he was Middlesbrough, but no, he's Saltburn.
Mm,
Um, but anyway, so we've got this school that is there to teach. girls, which, wouldn't have been that popular. So a lot of the girls going, in a way, I suppose you could say they were pioneers for women wanting an education, girls who got into those kind of grammar schools, not to mention the teachers who were
Hmm.
teaching them, which would have been female teachers. And we don't think about that. It's only like 100 years ago or so. And we don't, when I'm talking about history of education to people, they're like, well, it's all always been there. And it's like, well, really, no, it hasn't.
Mm.
It's actually a comparatively recent
Yeah.
thing that education wasn't class based. And obviously the great thing with the grammar schools is you could get in on a scholarship
Hmm.
and learn. Um, but there's so little about it. I found a few articles that were talking about awards being given and the schools had a good um, inspection and everything else. I did actually find one article that I think it was 1920 something that was new head teacher wanted for the girls' high school. But apart from that, I mean, I suppose it's good in a way that it's quiet. It means nothing major ever happened, but it's also very weird.
It is. We got most of our information from obviously primary sources from asking people in the
Yeah.
area, the different history, and particularly the people. It's called the Earthbeat Centre now.
Hmm.
Um, Asking the people that actually work there now to see if they have any historical records,
Mm.
just to see. But I mean, they didn't have anything, unfortunately, because I really wanted to see the layout. Because I
Mm.
know the building's been changed a number of times since it opened in the early 1900s. It's changed. It's also became a primary school in the 1970s where they
Yeah.
had mixed children there, but boys and girls. And because I'd seen an apparition in one of the first times I'd ever been. It was the first apparition I'd ever seen, and I wanted to see the layout because where I seen the apparition walk, there was no doorway. So I was wondering if that was previously a doorway in the old times, but I couldn't get any layout, which is quite disappointing, really, because then it would have been a little bit more evidence for me that I'm not imagining it.
Yeah, the only layouts of schools, unless you had a building plan, which possibly the local authority might have had still, but probably not. They would have donated. Most things like that are donated once they're about 50 years old to your local records office. Um, so they might hold on to the original sort of blueprint of the school, the original designs. I with something like that, I would almost be inclined to go on like a Facebook, like Facebook Remembers type page and say, did anyone go to the junior school
It's a good idea.
in Mask Road?
Hmm.
And it is pronounced Mask, isn't it? Not Mask. Is Mask?
It's where you come from, mask. I say
Well,
mask.
I was always told to say Mask, but when somebody read it, they said it says Mask. It does
Yes.
actually say Marske, and
I
I was
think the
like, yeah,
Southerners would say mask.
if I
Northerners
ever
say
said
mask.
mask, my dad would slap me round the head.
True Northerner, you see.
um, Yeah, same as if I ever said Middlesbrough. He would go, it's Middlesbrough.
Yeah,
He would,
that's good.
and he
Yeah.
hasn't lived up there for 60 years.
Got to
Um,
get in the dialect.
yeah, it doesn't take me long. I tell you, I go up there and I don't say go up anymore, it's go up.
Yeah.
Um, what was I saying? Yes. So yeah, the records office, again, they might have the original if they still exist, if they haven't been destroyed, but and also say going on like the remember like you know Saltburn remembers or Mask remembers or whatever, you might find someone who went to junior school there who can tell you what it looked like. All I was able to find though, teacher wise, in 1911, I think the head was a 48-year-old woman called Emma Leakey,
Right.
because I found related to it said Saltburn High School. There was only one high school.
Yes, there's only
Um,
one school, yeah.
yeah, the head was 48-year-old. On the census records, she was a single woman called Emma Leakey, who was 48. And interesting enough, she was born in France, even though she was British. She
Mm.
had a widowed lady who was, I think, a couple of years younger than her, who was living there with her as her, it says servant, but sort of housekeeper, I suppose, type thing, called Margaret Curry.
Right.
Um,
We do get a cook through there.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. The
Mm.
only other name I got that was working, it said on the census records for the area that she was because I mean, 1911, people wouldn't have lived too far away from where their job was because you obviously didn't have the kind of transport we have now.
Mm.
Was a lady by the name of Ethel Ranson, and she was a teacher at the high. It said teaching at local high school, and she lived in Saltburn.
It's
Um,
interesting because you'd said about Emily, we get Emily through quite a bit, but we didn't think that that was the lady. We thought that was a child.
Well, it's not Emily, it's Emma, but it would
Emma.
it would probably be Miss Leakey. She would have been known
Yeah,
as, wouldn't she? She
maybe.
wouldn't even the other teachers
Or
wouldn't have called
Madam.
each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, they wouldn't have called her by her first name.
Mm.
Even the teachers would have always called the head Miss
Yeah, they would have
whatever.
done.
But the other teacher who I think was there was Ethel Ranson. And what's so cool, she was still living in Saltburn in 1939. She was retired at this point. She was working as an ARP warden at
Really?
78. Yeah.
That's interesting.
How cool is that?
Yeah, it is.
What a girl.
Wow.
Um, I think there is a chance in 1939 there was a teacher working there called Ethel Short, but I was only able to find one record
Well,
relating.
you found out an awful lot than what we found.
It's my talent, it's my superpower.
You've definitely got a superpower, yeah, without a doubt.
But yeah, I'm pretty sure that in 1911 the headmistress was Emma Leakey.
Emma Leakey, right?
Mm.
It's interesting.
So what sort of, I mean, one of the other things you mentioned to me whilst we were sort of chatting before we started recording was, did I know of, wasn't it, was any military influence in
Yeah,
Saltburn?
yeah, we
Oh,
had an ex-soldier that we think came through within the we had a lady that was a medium, and she was saying about a soldier that had come through, and they thought that his name was William, or the lady thought that his name was William, and the story was that he had two daughters, um, and the children we think come through quite a bit because we get their names through quite
mm-hmm,
regularly. One was a little girl called Elizabeth, and it's either Annabelle or Annabella that
mm-hmm,
we get through. So I think it was two girls, and I think he passed over at around about
mm-hmm.
54-year old, 54 to 50, 60, 56 we got through. We've had that a few times, but we could, at the time, we couldn't, like when the lady was, we'd normally tell the history at the end. And after we told the history at the end, um, we'd basically said that, we don't know any connections with soldiers, etc. And when we were tidying up after everybody had gone, I went round and was just putting the curtains back, etc., and seen a photograph of what looked like a ceremony out the back on the playground
Mm-hmm.
where there were soldiers there, and I thought, oh well, it must have been used at some point for something like that. But I
Well,
wasn't sure what the connection was.
well, I don't know about the school being used for soldiers, but Saltburn definitely had a military presence. There's a building, I think it's a hotel and something now. Is it Blakely Hall? Is it
Yes,
Blakely Hall?
yeah, Blakey Court's lovely place, yeah.
Is it? Well, that was used for the military in World War II, something to do with ordnance and
Hmm.
artillery. Um, Also, I read an account of someone who was lived in that part of the world and they'd gone to the beach for the day it was during World War II, and they were very disappointed when they got out of their sort of bus on Saltburn Beach to find it covered in barbed wire and they weren't allowed to go on it. Um, I know Saltburn did get hit a few
Hmm.
times in World War II. I know the original infant school got a direct hit. And they ended up, I think, putting the classes on in a church hall or something so that the kids didn't have to go too long without some kind of normality.
Hmm.
Saltburn wasn't obviously as targeted as, should we say, like places like Middlesbrough and stuff, but no, it definitely did have military base there. I mean, you thing is, you're not that far from some of the huge army camps in the northeast anyway, are you, up in your neck of the
No,
woods?
no, it's quite close.
Yeah, but no, you did have military in Saltburn. This William with his daughters Elizabeth and Annabelle, do you know if he does he ever tell people if he's a local boy or not?
He doesn't. he tends to not speak to the ladies as much. If we have a male investigator on, he will talk to the male investigators rather than the female. It's almost like there's
Right.
that gender divide still.
Okay.
Um, so maybe that's, I don't know, maybe it's a dating thing. Maybe it could be like you could date it back to pre, when ladies didn't have that right to speech and things like that, I suppose. Um,
Possibly.
so I don't know, but he doesn't really give us any indication of when he was here. We haven't had that, unfortunately.
Yeah. If it's when it was a school, it could be World War One or World War Two, to be quite honest, because obviously
Absolutely.
the school was in existence through both. I sometimes find with soldiers, if that's what he was, the reason they don't communicate with the women is they don't think the women will understand what they're telling them.
Mm.
They,
Right.
I do get a lot of military come through to me, and I am female. I know I am. I've had kids and
Mm.
everything. But they come through to me, and I've never understood why. And somebody once said it's because I understand what the images they're giving me. I
Yeah.
understand what they're telling me, being a military historian.
Mhm.
Um, I can kind of, if they put a uniform,
Interpret it. Yeah.
yeah. So it could be that. It might not be a sexism thing. It might just be a assumption that if there's a young man, he might have served because a spirit might not understand that you don't have sort of national service,
Mm.
almost like an assumption. Whereas the women, most they could have obviously been ambulance drivers or nurses, and that's pretty much it.
Mm.
Um, but it's intrigued me because I'm already thinking of ways that I could possibly see if I can find a William with two children. Yeah, I'm already thinking of the way. I'm already thinking of
Yeah.
ways. I'm already thinking of ways.
That would be brilliant.
But yeah, it could be that. It could just be that it's not necessarily I don't talk to women. It could be. It could be, he doesn't want to talk to the women because that's maybe dishonoring his wife or
Mm.
something.
A
Um,
number of reasons.
it could, but it could just be that yeah. But like I say, I've had it before that a military-based spirit has been trying to communicate, and because I'm the one that understands what they're saying, they then talk to me because I can interpret it.
Hmm.
I did that once. I think it was at Fort Horsted. I was picking up on something, and there was a psychic there, male psychic, and I'd say something, and then he'd finish the sentence. We were both seeing the same thing. It was really weird.
It's weird. Yeah.
Um, but he was finishing off what I was saying. I've never had that happen before.
Like you were connected.
Yeah,
Yeah. Hmm.
yeah. Um, yeah, it was weird. But yes, yeah, the Saltburn as a place did have. I'd have to dig more to see how much of a military
Mm.
sort of background it had, but it definitely did have. Blakely Hall was definitely used
Be really
for ordnance
interesting.
during World War Two. So, I mean, I've investigated quite a few old schools. Even my son's old primary school, once I was in there sort of after hours, and we had doors opening and shutting by themselves. This was with the head teacher, doors opening and shutting, and she went, "That's normal. That happens all the time." And I went, "Well, it shouldn't happen, should she?" And don't, no, no, pretty sure it's haunted. Let's not tell the parents. Which I didn't. Well, I did. I told a couple of my friends who were parents because I knew they'd find it cool. I always find schools do have where I think it's the childlike sort of um innocent energy.
Mhm.
It
Yes.
stays. And you've
Mhm.
worked in quite a few schools, so you must have felt that.
Yes, definitely.
The fact
Yeah,
now that
definitely.
Saltburn is a theatre company, that's a whole new type of energy that's sort of feeding it, really, because obviously theatre and live productions and everything, there's a real
It is.
adrenaline.
Do you know that it's a theatre company for children with special needs and learning difficulties?
Is it really? So it's an even more
Yeah.
special kind of energy going on.
Yes, and well, that's one of the reasons why we ended up being there because they told us that there were when we first went to have a look round, they said that the children that attend on the morning are a different set of children that attend on the afternoon.
Hmm.
But the children were playing with like I had imaginary friends, but they were calling them the same names. So say
Hmm.
if it was, I don't know, Bobby, Bobby would be there on the morning and on the afternoon. And they couldn't explain how, because the staff changed as well, they couldn't
Yeah.
explain how this was happening. There was only the manager really that was consistent and they could see that that was happening with both sets of groups.
Wow.
So that was quite interesting. And she was just really interested and she wanted to come to one of our investigations. So she came on the night just to see what was happening. And to be fair, when we first started, it was fairly quiet on the
Hmm.
investigation. So it was almost like the spirits needed to learn how to use the equipment and the
Yeah,
more
I found that
traditional methods
before.
worked
Yeah,
first.
yeah.
Um, it's just been one of those places that's been you've seen the growth in
Mm,
communication, if you like.
yeah,
But I think it does resonate more with me because I do get children spirits around me, and I think that that's because I'm a teacher
yeah,
and they
probably.
come to my energy, I think.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I didn't realize it was uh, a special needs, but
Hmm.
that there is children having energy. I think a lot of children with special needs and additional needs having even more of an energy
Yeah.
and innocence around them. Um, and I have never gone into a school when I've investigated or even just visited an older school and felt intimidated by the energy.
Mm.
It just makes me want to smile.
Yeah. Yeah.
How like that is Saltburn, seeing as it would have been a grammar school, which would have had a different kind of focus, shall we say, on
Mhm.
education to a primary school. Does it have that kind of lovely sort of like playfulness feel to it, or does it feel more, oh,
Most of the places do. I mean, I'd say most of the areas. There's a corridor. It's like in a U shape. When if you looked at it from above,
hmm,
it's in a U shape. And on the right-hand side, there's a corridor in particular that just makes your hairs stand up.
really?
Apparently, there's underneath that part of the building, there's a cellar. We can't get in there because of public liability. Um, but it's supposed to be extremely active. We've heard when we've been upstairs knocks from downstairs in the cellar, and we know fine well there's nobody there. Um, but we've heard very clear knocks there, and I did a live once when usually you put the your camera on with the live and all the activity just disappears.
Hmm.
But this one night I was actually doing the live, and it was if I'd knocked 4 times, it would knock 4 times. If I'd asked it to do something, it would do it virtually straight away. It was one of those that I'll probably never have an investigate like a live investigation like that again. To the point where I thought, well, people are going to think that I'm doing this. So I sat in front of the camera so that they could see that what I was doing. Um, that was amazing. But there is something dark along that corridor. But generally, the feel is quite light.
Mm,
And it is quite joyful in most of the rooms. It's nothing that makes you feel scared, but it really makes you feel uneasy on that right-hand side corner.
mm,
Um, we do have, it's funny because there's different activity in different rooms, and because we've been doing it now for over about 3 years, we've been exclusive there.
mm,
Um, it tends to be like particular activity in particular areas, but because different groups come there, wouldn't know that,
mm,
like different groups of people. So it's interesting for me because you do get very similar activity from one group to another
mm,
some nights, and some things are consistent, which I find that interesting because I think, well, if the groups don't know and they've never been here before,
mm.
how are they experiencing the same thing? Why is that
Yeah.
happening?
So this,
I like to
sorry,
try to explain it. No, sorry.
that's all right. So this basement area, do you know roughly how big it is?
Don't. I've never been in.
Mm.
Never had a chance to access it. I would say it's probably, looking at the size of the building outside, it's probably about 7 meters by the cellar itself, 7 meters by approximately 10. So it would be quite big. For
O-
that would be the bigger part, and then there's the smaller part, I think, at the side, which would be probably about 4 by 6 meters.
And it didn't house the boiler or anything like that for the school?
Possibly. But it could, I think probably the boiler's over the other side because that's where the toilets are based on the other side
Right.
as well. The female toilets.
I'm wondering if it was used almost like an air raid shelter then,
Possibly.
and that could be why someone's knocking.
Mm, that's interesting. That's a question
Um,
I can ask next time I go.
mm, I mean, building of air raid shelters, most the schools had to apply to the well, it was like local government to have permission to build them. But if a school had its own basement anyway, they'd have probably just said use the basement if it was already there, because it's kind of, it should provide a modicum of say protection if there was a hit. So I'm wondering if it's a shame they won't let you down there even without members of the public just to
I
see.
know that's it. I'd be really interested just to see because that's the area that we get a lot of the more, I don't know, the more negative, I would say.
Hmm.
I wouldn't say it's very negative, but it's definitely darker than the rest of the, the building, without a
Well, I
shadow of a
mean,
doubt.
I suppose if you were put down there because it was a air raid, it would have been fear. The fear bit
Mm.
would have caused the. Could you not
I
ask
think
them if there's any way that you can just put, say, a voice recorder down there or something? Like,
just
not
leave
actually.
it there. That
Yeah,
would be interesting just for the whole night, and then we
yeah,
can just analyze it later on.
yeah,
Because that particular spirit, why it intrigues me the most, is because it's the more intelligent,
yeah,
but you get direct responses. So if I say knock twice, it would knock twice.
yeah.
Um,
I'd ask if I could put a voice recorder in there. Not go into the plate, but just literally, I don't know if there's steps or anything down to it, but just
yeah,
ask if you can put a recorder in there and just leave it recording and nobody go into there, but just put the
mm.
recorder in there so it can record
That
what's
would be
happening.
interesting because you can only access it from that part, from what I
Yeah.
understand, from that part of the building. So
Hey, what's
that
the worst?
would
They can
sound
only say
interesting.
no. What's the worst they can do? Say no.
Exactly. Well, shy bones get nothing, do they?
Exactly. Exactly. But that's actually what I mean, I'm my sort of I've got two gut feelings on it. One is that it was used as an air raid shelter because, like I said, we
Mhm,
know Saltburn did get bombed, albeit not as much as say Middlesbrough, but it did get bombed. But also possibly someone sent down there as punishment. That'd be my other gut feeling.
mhm.
But if it was that large, they could have got themselves into quite a lot of trouble being sent down
Yeah.
there, like mischief trouble. Um,
There's also
yeah,
quite a lot of rooms coming off that area as well, above the cellar,
yeah,
and they're very small rooms. So that would be probably somewhere that they would have sent the children
mm,
in the past, I should imagine.
yeah. Mm. But it's nice to know that it's got in the main a nice feel
Yes,
to the place
that's,
as opposed to a um I say I've honestly I've never been to a school, even though I know a lot of people had a horrible schooling experience. Most schools I've gone to, especially those that were dealing with children who wouldn't ordinarily have been given that opportunity, have a really nice feel to them. They
mm,
do have, and you mentioned when we were talking off air, why would they go back? If they if why would they
yeah,
want to go back?
yeah, it
It,
just intrigues me as to why would, because in as my childhood, I had a nice school, wasn't particularly traumatic, wasn't particularly, I didn't particularly like school, but it wasn't something that would draw me back
mm.
in later life. So I
Well,
just,
see, but then again, if you didn't have a happy home life and school was your safe
your
place,
sanctuary, yeah.
yeah. I mean, when I wrote about Hitchin, the British School Museum at Hitchin, um, there's a lot of people tried to sort of make up really like nasty stories about children were murdered here and that's why they're still here. And I was like, no, it was nothing to do with that. It was in fact a lot of the children that were being taught there came from dirt poor families, and by poor I mean poor to the you could not even imagine. And yet
Destitute.
when well, yeah, like three to a bed, sharing a pair of shoes between five children, that kind of poor,
Yeah.
getting the opportunity to learn and read and write, to read and write, was going to get them out of that cycle. And it meant that they weren't one of however many siblings anymore. They were Robert or Daniel or but they were the person now. They
Mm,
got to get their own identity rather than being just a money making thing for their parents so they could put bread on the table. And for a lot of them, school would have been, like you say, their safe space. It would have
mm,
been, when I mean we are talking sort of probably 60, 70 years before Saltburn would have been the school. But when you read about the areas that they were living in Hitchin and what they were having to deal with on a regular basis, I can imagine going to school every day was bliss.
mm.
So
Yeah.
it could even be something that, they got given an opportunity that otherwise they wouldn't have got. And they got given the chance to shine or
Yeah, yeah.
something. But yeah, I mean, no, I wouldn't particularly want to. I loved school, but I had an awful time there because I was bullied from
Mm.
5 until I was 12. Um, so no, I wouldn't want to go back apart from to maybe get revenge on some of the bullies. Um, but but I was reasonably happy at home in my bedroom reading books and things. So that's probably where you'll find me when I'm gone, is sat somewhere in a corner reading a book.
Mm.
Um, but I guess you until you sort of look into some of their children's lives, then you can understand maybe why they want to come back.
Mm. Absolutely.
Um, yeah, it's interesting. It's an interesting. It's something I think I was talking to somebody else about this the other day. It's like, why do spirits go to somewhere if they didn't die there, if they didn't have a traumatic event or whatever? And it's like, are they just pulled back there because they're like, where would you like to go? Well, actually, I really enjoyed my time working there, or I really
Mm.
enjoyed my time at school when I was 13 and I was learning algebra, whatever it was. Um,
I mean, perhaps they're just like us and they just wander about in a different reality. You never know. It might be a different realm. It's
yeah,
it fascinates me really. I'd love to find out. I think that's why I do what I do. It just
yeah,
interests me.
it's constantly asking questions. I think when you run out of questions or wanting to question, that's when you need to take a break.
Give up. Yeah, yeah, you do.
So what, I mean, you mentioned about the cellar being, or the basement, whatever you want to call it, being very intelligently active.
Hmm.
What has been your favorite? And you don't have to say where it happened at the school so that if anyone comes to visit, they don't know. What's been your favorite experience at the
I've
school?
got two actually. My first one was a shadow figure that I saw that I actually thought was Jonathan, one of our investigators. It's
Mm,
exactly the same build, same height. And I just said, "Oh, what are you doing here?" Didn't expect him to be here and just walked off. But it was a black shadow because I was opening up in the dark,
mm,
and I hadn't put the light on, so I couldn't see properly down the corridor. And I just imagined, I thought he'd walked off. And when I actually opened up all of the area, went back into the main room where myself and another investigator was, she said, "Jonathan's not even here." So I was like, well,
mm.
who was it in that corridor then? 'Cause I'd definitely seen it. And where they were walking through, that was one where I thought they was walking, it actually walked through a wall. So I wanted to see the plans to see if it was actually a doorway in the past. But I couldn't get that. But then the next one was just down from, I can't say, I won't say the particular area that we saw it,
Mm,
but we had a private booking where the group, there was only eight people and two investigators, and we were stood in one position looking at another place, and you could actually see it was a child figure just peeking around the corner of the door. And it
mm.
took us a while to actually to really work out that yes, it was definitely we're definitely seeing it.
Yeah.
Um, and then eventually, I mean, we should have got it on camera. It's one of those things that we didn't
Oh,
take.
don't you? Yeah, the amount of time something's happened to you, like, damn it, I didn't have my recorder going
Yeah,
because I was just walking around chatting to people doing with all the lights on, and that's when you hear a disembodied voice. Yeah,
I
yeah, I've been
just
there.
don't. I couldn't believe that the fact that we were seeing it, and it was popping its head round the corner and back again, and then all of a sudden we had cat balls positioned all the way down the particular area that we were in. You said it there. And as it came towards us, it actually set off each cat ball. So you could see it coming towards us. It was actually
Wow.
evidenced with the cat balls. And then all of a sudden it just vanished. And everybody in that room saw that happening. And it's different when you see it by yourself. The shadow
Mm,
figure, for example, that could have been my imagination. Could have been for one side of the brain seeing it before the
yeah.
other. But eight of us seeing one thing and then the cat balls evidence in it is quite a different matter. And
Mm,
that's intrigued me ever since. And it's not the first time there's other people that have seen it. And it doesn't come with any malice or anything like that.
no.
It's just a child. I think it's just very inquisitive and wants to play.
Oh, have you ever tried going into teacher mode there to sort of use as a trigger?
Yes,
And has
yes.
that worked?
And that's when a lady comes. There's a lady spirit there, and I didn't know whether she was we always teach her on whether it's a teacher or a cook, and she's very authoritative. So if you use your authoritative voice, she comes out as well. It's almost like who's been in my position. It's almost that type of thing. And there's also a male spirit that we have, which is quite, how can I put it, awkward.
Okay.
So if you want him to do something or say something, he will. So if you say, "Can you, I don't know, touch the ball over here?" He'll touch the ball on the other side. And he
Okay.
won't do what he would not do what you're asking to do.
Obstreperous, would that be the right
Yes,
word?
yeah, that's
Obstreperous?
probably,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think
very,
that's how you pronounce it. Yeah.
being very obtuse, I should imagine.
Yeah. Probably a
Um,
caretaker then. Probably the caretaker, because in
Possibly, yeah,
the girls'
possibly.
schools, the only real sort of, they didn't really have male teachers, did they? They didn't.
No,
And so the only male was the caretaker. Um, so it could be the caretaker. Leave a screwdriver out for him and see if he moves it.
it's funny because I do think that I mean, it may be a caretaker because we have been there a few times recently because the activities increase as we've gone. It's almost
Mm.
like it's got to know us and it'll come out a little bit
It
more.
trusts you. Yeah.
Yeah. And I was setting up, it was a couple of months back, and one of the guests had come early and he just come in when I was setting up, and I had the front door open and I had the door into the school open, and I heard her, and I thought, oh, what was that? And I just said, what was that? And the gentleman said, I don't know. I don't think he heard it really to begin with. So I'd finished taking all of my equipment out of the car and I closed the door that was going out to like to the roadside. So that was blocking off anything from out then. The other door was open into the hallway and I could hear it again.
Mm.
Probably about 20 minutes later, but it was the same whistle.
Mm.
And so I whistled back to see if it would whistle back at me. And it didn't for a couple of
Mm.
minutes. Then it did it again. And then it did it again on the night time where everybody heard it. And that was almost like it was trying to get my attention. Like, I know that you're here. Because it was just well,
Mm.
sometimes it would do it twice. That was interesting because it's starting to be where we can hear things
Mm.
as well, which
Well,
that's relatively new.
I'd be trying to get hold of like an old like screwdriver or hammer from like the 1930s and
Mm.
leave it as a trigger. That would be what
Yeah.
I'd be doing.
We've thought about keys. We've got some keys that we leave around, like a bunch of keys like the
Yeah.
caretaker would have. And we've left those in places.
Oh, I know a good one. Leave a key in the boiler room door and tell the caretaker you've left your keys in the boiler room and have someone watching it to see if the keys move.
Could put a locked off camera on there, couldn't we?
Mm.
That would be an idea.
Because caretakers were very protective of their boilers.
Mm.
I found this out when I was on a history talk. This is I'm letting you in on all my secrets here, Mel. I hope you're grateful. Um, I was on a history talk and it was all about the history of Chelmsford and stuff. And I'm sat next to this guy, we're talking about 10 years ago now, and I'm sat next to this lovely old boy. And he's like, "You're a bit young to be interested in this." And I said, "Oh no, I love history and I'm into the paranormal and stuff." And we got nattering, and he was in his late 80s. And he was lovely, so nice. And he instructed his son to go and get me a coffee. He said, go and get her a coffee. I want to keep talking to her. I don't want to waste my time. Go and get her a drink, sort of thing. And it transpires he had gone to my son's school during World War II. His dad was the caretaker,
Mhm.
and him and his mate, when the sirens were, and I know where the air raid shelters were from my son's old school because I did a project on it for the school. But he told me that when the air raid things went off, he didn't want to go into the shelters because they were like dingy and damp and cold. He used to nick his dad's keys to the boiler room and go and him drag one of his mates in so they could sit by the boiler and keep warm. And his dad would then spend the next hour searching for his keys because he was very protective of his boiler keys. And I said to him, "Did you not think of the danger if the boiler had got a hit?" And he went, "No, at 9 years old, we didn't think of that. We just wanted to stay warm."
Yeah.
And he said, but Dad was always really protective of his boiler room keys because he would find kids sheltering there when it was cold. So there you go. That's my.
Mhm. Interesting.
I don't know what caretakers were like when you were a teacher, whether they were protective of their boiler room as well, but this was one back in the 40s. Apparently he was.
It's funny because they've all got the little cupboards, haven't they? They've all got like the little hubby holes that
Yeah,
the caretakers sit in. And
yeah.
sometimes it's with a boiler and sometimes it isn't.
I remember when, if yeah, I remember, well, a lot of them have radios now, don't they? So you can get them on the radio. But
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
I remember once I was waiting for one of my sons when he was little, and someone was like, "Has anyone seen Mr.?" I can't remember what the teacher's name, the caretaker's name was, Sainsbury, Salisbury, something like that. And they were like, "No, where is he?" And yeah, he was found in his little hidey hole that only a few of the teachers knew where it was. I thought it was quite funny. I mean, the fact his house was right next to the school, he could have just hopped over the fence, really. But yeah, keys in the boiler room. Tell someone's messing with his boiler and see what happens.
That is a good idea. It is.
I love triggers. I love doing trigger stuff. Um, yeah, I remember once taking Wes Coleman, Canadian Wes Coleman. He's a prison officer in Canada. Took him into a prison and told him to go prison officer mode. The atmosphere just changed, like
Mm.
like that. It just changed. It was so strange. That's why I asked if you'd ever gone headmistress on them. School
It's
teacher on them
funny.
and seen what
There was a
happens.
gentleman with a very harsh voice that came on a couple of about 6 months ago, and he seemed to be triggering a reaction. And I think it was because his voice sounded very authoritative,
Hmm.
um, and sounded very strict
Mm,
when he was speaking, and he got quite a lot of activity because
mm,
before that, it was one night that was fairly quiet, and we didn't get that much activity that what we would usually expect. Um, but as soon as he started to speak in this tone,
mm.
it was a complete different atmosphere. We started to get some activity that was interesting.
Oh, I love stuff like that, or speaking in a foreign language if it's a place where, I mean,
Yeah.
if you've got anyone who can speak French, maybe speak French and see if Emaliki comes through.
That's a really good idea because I
Mm,
can speak a little bit of French, so
mm,
not much,
mm.
but a little bit. And
Well, say
that
she
would be
said she was
interesting.
born in France, even though she was British.
Mhm.
So I'm presuming she could speak French. Presume she could. Well, I guarantee next time I come up north, I will let you know, and whether I go to the
Definitely,
school or whether I go to the bathhouse, and see if I can.
definitely let us. I mean, I'll take you around the old school. It's if you would like to, because it really does have a very different atmosphere to the other places that we've been, and like I say, some quite intelligent responses. And voices that we've never you don't hear voices very often, not genuine voices, but there's a few things that we've heard, and like the whistles and
Yeah,
mama has been said twice recently in the last six months, and that was on two separate occasions, um, with two completely different groups that wouldn't have known what was said previously. So that was really interesting. It'd be interesting if you could come up and just,
yeah.
with your knowledge of the historical part of things, that would be really interesting to see if you could pick up on things.
My accent would probably throw them though, because
Sorry?
my accent, because of the era that the school was a
Yeah,
school,
microphone.
you
Mhm.
wouldn't have had many Southerners living, or the only Southerners possibly would have been like maybe some of the sort of business owners, but you in Middlesbrough and stuff running the docks, but you wouldn't have had.
That might intrigue them. You never
Mm,
know.
yeah, it's work. It was work when I've been in the States. I've had things come through that like, we never had that come through. I'm telling you, it's the accent. It does weird
Yeah.
things to people. Um, but so how do people get hold of Kindred if they want to come on one of your investigations, Mel? If we've sold them on the joys of
Sounds good.
Northeast England.
I think the easiest way to go is our website, which is www.kindredspiritinvestigations.co.uk. And if you go onto the tab that says events and then go to month by month, that tells you all the events we have each month. We're also on Ticket Source and Eventbrite, but they do charge
Mm.
commission for them as well. So the cheapest way is really through our website. And you get directly in touch with me with all of the platforms that we go on anyway.
And do you have a
So
Facebook page? Does Kindred have a Facebook page people can
yes,
follow?
yes, Kindred Spirit Investigations. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok, all the usual platforms that people go on.
Awesome. Well, I do like the fact that, I mean, say, apart from the fact that you're looking after an area that is kind of my family's, my paternal side of my family's old stomping ground, and I love seeing places that aren't the norm being found out about and investigated, because that's how we keep the history alive. And whilst
Absolutely.
it is frustrating for me not to have been able to find more about the school, it's out there. The information is out there. I'll just say I records office, and if Teeside was a bit closer to me, I'd be like, I'm coming up to Teeside records office. I'm spending 8 hours there and seeing what I can find. But it's a bit of a trek, so I'm gonna have to leave that to you, Mel.
Mhm.
But thank you ever so much for
No,
coming
thank you
on.
for inviting me.
Yeah, no, it's been an absolute pleasure. I know I'll be seeing you at the festival in a few weeks.
You certainly will. Have a few wines together.
Well, you have the wine, I have the Coke, because I don't drink, but
Oh,
I'll
do you
pretend.
not?
No, no, no. No, I don't drink,
Love
but
your wines then.
yeah, you can have my wine. I'm just on Diet Coke. Yeah. Um, what was I going to say? I've just completely thrown me then. But yeah, so I'll be seeing you at the festival in a couple of weeks, depending on how hard they've worked me, is whether I'm half asleep on the Saturday night again and sitting there in a corner, people watching, or whether I'm actually partaking. Never
Well,
really know.
you're doing a thing, aren't you? A talk? Because I sat
Yeah,
on the second. Yeah, I can't wait.
I've got the Friday, I'm doing my mystery history tour, like I did
Yes.
last year. That's the one that does take quite a lot out of me. And then I'm doing my talk on the Sunday morning.
Yeah. So
Um,
I'm there for the full weekend this time. I
yeah.
only went for a few days last time, but I've took
Ah.
time off work.
Oh, so
I'll
you're
be
coming to my
interested.
mystery history tour on the Friday?
Yes, I'm doing the whole thing this year.
Oh, I tell
You
you what,
can't get rid of me then, you know,
I
honey.
have to come up with something different. This will be my third year doing it, and I have to come up with something different every year. And it's just like, I don't want to do anything that's obvious. And yet, I know with this one, there's going to be people going, "You've brought us where?" But I will do my best. I mean, the research queen, I found out a few interesting things. I've got things to make people laugh because I do like my props when I'm doing my history tour. And hopefully I'll show an area to people that they didn't know existed. So, but
Mhm.
yes, I'm there. I'm there from well, I'm doing the Thursday in the Galleries of Justice as well. I'm one of the celebs helping with the ghost hunt. So
I look forward to it. So
going to be
I've heard
good.
that you're fabulous, which I wouldn't expect anything less.
You are sweet. Well, that's been the lovely Mel Clements from Kindred Spirit Investigations. I hope you enjoyed that show. Um, there will be another episode of Haunted Histories in October. Like I say, I've booked myself for four, so you've got one coming every month now until the end of the year, and I'm even starting to book my shows for 2025, because if any more of you message me to say when's the next episode coming out, I was feeling very guilty that I'd taken my foot off the pedal a bit, but Mama needed a break. But anyway, it's lovely to be back. I do hope you've enjoyed it. Do get in touch with Kindred and look at their website. And because the northeast of England, it does get forgotten, it does get a bit of a bad reputation, but oh my days, we've not even scratched the surface of the amazing history of that part of the UK. And I'm not being biased because my dad's from Middlesbrough. It really is a fascinating place. And on that note, I'll see you all soon. Have a good evening, sleep tight, and don't worry too much about things that go bump in the night.